It's my life. Lazy. It's my life.
So, good morning everyone. I am to discuss about the literature. So, for today's video, we're gonna talk about the literature, so the history, the elements, and the kinds of literature. So, for my part, I will be discussing to you the history of literature. So, to start, literature comes from the Latin littera, which means letters. So, and it also refers to the acquaintance, which can be a written word or the specific written work of a culture, subculture, religion, or the philosophy, or also the study of the written work which may appear in any poetry or any prose. So, secondly, literature and writing, though they are connected, but they are not synonymous. So they are bind together, but they are not similar. So the very first writings from the ancient Sumer, by any reasonable definition, do not constitute literature. So the sum is true of some of the early Egyptian hieroglyphics, or the thousands of logs from ancient Chinese regions. So the historical development of literature did not occur at an even pace of some across the world. So we're tackling about now the problems. So the problems of creating a uniform global history of literature are compounded by the fact that some of the texts or some of the words are changed or total change over the millennia. So either they are changed deliberately, they are changed by accident, or the total disappearance of the originating culture. So thirdly, certain primary texts, however, may be isolated, which have a qualifying roles as literature. So very early examples of these are the Epic of Gilgamesh, the Book of the Dead, the Egyptian Book of the Dead, um, the Homer's Iliad, and lastly, the Odyssey. So to finish, related to other forms of literary history, the history of book is a field of interdisciplinary inquiry, drawing on the methods of bibliography, cultural history, literary criticism, the media theory. So principally concerned by the production, um, circulation of and reception of texts and their within all forms book history seeks to connect forms of textuality with their material aspect.
Elements of literature. Most of the components involved in creating a successful short story or novels can be traced to 6 basic elements. There are 6 basic elements of literature. Number 1 is character. Number 2 is settings. Number 3 is conflict. Number 4 is point of view. Number 5 is theme. Number 6 is plot. Character is the process by which authors communicate their characters to read. Character is a person or object that takes part in the action of literary work. There are 4 types of character. Number 1 is protagonist. Protagonist is the main character and experience that conflict in the story. Number 2 is antagonist. Antagonist is the cause of conflict. Number 3 is dialogue. Dialogue is the word of a character uses in conversation that and how they are used gives the reader insight into the character. Number 4 is minor and main character. Main character is the most important character in the story, poem, and play, and the minor character is the one who takes part in the action but is not the focus on attention. Conflict. Conflict is provide the tension and drama that story are built upon. It involves the story problem that must be solved. The central conflict is many short story is often based on one of these 4 common. There are 4 types of conflict. Number 1 is character against character. When one person struggle against another person. Number 2 is character against society. When a character struggle against the rules, law, or custom that surround him. The third is character against nature. When a person struggles against the forces of nature, for example, storm, disease, and etc. The last is character against self. When a character struggles with him fears, endurance, or conscience. Settings. Settings is the environment in which a story takes place. Settings is a short story usually have only one major, while novels sometimes involve more settings. Why is the settings is important? The setting is effect is the beliefs and action of characters and feeling or mood. Point of view. Point of view is determines who is telling the story. Point of view, it is the perspective the author chooses to tell the story. There are three types of point of view. The first is first person. The story is told by one of the characters. The narrator uses the word I to refer to the character. And the second is third person limited. Someone outside the story tells the story. The reader know the thoughts and feelings of only one or two characters. And the last is third person omniscient. The narrator provides the thoughts and feelings of many different characters. The reader can get inside the head of all the main characters. Foreshadowing. Foreshadowing is when the author gives clues and hints about that might happen in a story. The next is theme. Theme is the central message, concern, or purpose of a story. It is the lesson of the story. There are two types of theme. Number one is general themes. The big idea in a piece of literature, for example, love of friendship or good and evil. The second is specific themes. The message of author is trying to communicate to the reader. For example, beauty is the eye of beholder, or money can buy happiness. Plot. Plot is the pattern of events in the story. Number one is exposition. The beginning story is where the reader meets and learns about the main character. Number two is rising action. This is when most of the events take place. The rising action eventually lead to the climax and conflict is developed. Number three is climax. This is turning point in the story. The outcomes of the plot depends on the climax. Number four is falling action. The story begins to wrap up as the mysteries are explained and the characters return to their own lives. And the last one is resolution. This is the end of the story. The conflict of the story has been resolved in some way.
I am Christine Albayel, and I am here to tackle about the types and classification of literature. So, they have 8 main types of literature, and these are drama, fable, autobiography, biography, poetry, prose, science fiction, and journalistic literature. So, number 1 is drama. So, what is drama? Drama is the portrayal or fictional or non-fictional events, also called play, and their creator are known as playwrights or dramatists. Number 2 is fable. So, fable is a narrative form usually featuring animals that behave and speak as human beings. Number 3 is autobiography. So, autobiography is a biography in which the author writes his or her own life. Next is poetry. So, poetry, it evokes a concentrated imaginative awareness of experience or a specific emotional response through language. Number 6 is prose. Prose is a literary medium distinguished from poetry. Number 7 is science fiction. It is a fictionalized story wherein the setting and the plot are centered around technology, time travel, and etc. And lastly, journalistic literature, also referred to as narrative journalism, is defined as creative nonfiction that creates accurate and well-researched information. That's all the 8 main types of literature, and now we have the classification of literature. The classification of literature may be classified according to a variety of systems, including language, national origin, historical period, genre, and subject matter.
I am Charisse Blaza, and I am here to tackle the examples of literature. So I will tackle a few examples of literature. So first, let us know the example of literary fiction. So the example of literary fiction is the mysteries, the fantasy, the romance, chick-lit, crime thrillers, and it is called the fiction genres. The examples of classic fiction also include To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee, A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens, and 1984 by George Orwell. Also, here are some examples of the fiction literature. That it includes the essay, travel literature, and nature writing, biography, autobiography, and memoir, and journalism, letters, journals, history, philosophy, economics, scientific, and technical writings. And third, the drama literature. So the example of drama literature are the Godfather, The Shawshank Redemption, American Beauty, Forrest Gump, and God Will Hunting. And the example of poem literature, it includes The Florante at Laura by Francisco Balagtas, Tutubi or Dragonfly by Gonzalo, Isang Punong Kahoy, The Three by Jose Corazon de Jesus, and Sa Gabi ng Isang Piyon, Night of a Construction Worker by Lambert T.E. And then the last one is Isang Dipang Langit, A Piece of Heaven by Jose Corazon de Jesus. So, here are some also few examples of folktale literature. It includes The Goldilocks and the Three Bears, a British story about a girl who breaks into the house of the three bears, tries everything out, and gets carried away. Then, The White Elephant, a folktale from Asia about how the kind white elephant is treated kindly.
It's my life.